Thank you. So sweet. Good morning again, my friends. If you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I am the spiritual director here. My pronouns are they and them, and as I've told you before, you can call me whatever makes you feel comfortable. My ancestors came to this country on my mother's side from Austria and Holland, and on my father's side from Ireland and Scotland. So, as we step deeper into this time together today, I want to invite you just to take one more deep breath. And so this whole year, 2022, we've been exploring this theme we've been calling our year of inner and outer permaculture. And each month we've been exploring a different principle, and we've been relaying that to not only how do we interact with the landscape out there, how do we use these principles to help us navigate the landscape in here, yes. Right? And we've moved through a number of different principles, and our final principle this month is integrate, don't segregate. Right? Yeah. And I think if you've looked out at the world at all, this is useful. Right? Because there's a whole lot of stuff going on out there. And who knows where these talk titles come from, but at some point in the last month I was like, a potluck of beliefs. Right? And you know, we're a potluck kind of people. We love to do that thing. I spend a lot of time in community, and my life seems to have a lot of potlucks in it. And you know, there's a thing about a potluck, which is that when we show up to that thing, each one of us brings something that's unique to us, some special dish, something that is our particular flavor. And when we come together, we have a potluck every week, and we kind of rotate the alphabet. It's fascinating to see how some weeks are a little more savory, some weeks are a little more sweet, some weeks have a good mix, you know? And I was thinking, isn't that kind of like spiritual community? You know, I spent a long, meandering path finding science of mind. And for those of you who know my sort of spiritual path, I sort of started off as a Christian refugee, you know, coming out as queer in a Baptist church. You got to kind of get kicked out a little bit. And I spent some years wandering, looking for where I belong. And I had about a decade of what I called my years of spiritual tourism. Which is where I went and prayed in a mosque on Fridays, and I'd sit zazen on Monday, and I'd go dance Hare Krishna on Sunday afternoon, and you know, I was moving around all of these different communities, and there was this period of time where I was really looking for, where is my unique flavor? Where do I belong? And I personally just love God. And there was this point in my life where I decided I wanted to just go explore all of the different flavors. Where were people serving spirit? Where were people exploring this idea? And, you know, I found out that the Baptists were a little too salty for me. And, you know, you kind of spend some time in some hippie, new agey communities, which might have been a little too sweet. You know, and there's this kind of middle place that I was looking for that I found when I found Centers for Spiritual Living, right? And it's because there's this place where we can all come together in this container we call community, bringing all of our different spiritual backgrounds and experiences with us, right? And that we may not all believe the same thing, but we believe in similar things. We believe in a higher consciousness. We believe in the power of our collective consciousness. We believe in the power of love. We believe that there is a universal truths that are available when we look for them. They're there, right? And, you know, we had our new member class a couple weeks ago, and it was so sweet to me to hear how some of us identify as atheists. Some of us came from Buddhist paths. Some of us came from Christian paths. Some of us really love science. Some of us are into aliens and angels. And, you know, it's like we believe many different things, and yet we also believe in our commonality, right? And that so often I think the world around us tells us that we need to segregate ourselves from the people who look, think, or believe differently than we do, right? We have this culture that surrounds us that many people out there appear to feel safer only hearing their own opinion coming back at them, right? But we can't grow that way, right? We know, as we've been exploring our principles here this year, that diversity is how nature thrives, right? Look to a forest, look to an ecosystem, look to the environment, look to the ocean. It's in mass diversity. It's in the great overlap of all of the differences that are actually what bring thriving forward in the natural world. And that's actually what brings thriving into our lives and into our minds, right? And, we've really been focusing a lot on the last couple of months about the necessity and the power of this thing we call community. Because no one of us is here alone. And it is so incredibly important for us to remember that. As the storms and the trials and the chaos of the world spins around us, we need safe spaces to lean into each other. To know that we can show up with our wholeness, with our uniqueness, with our differences, and be seen and loved by the people around us. And how sweet it is to have this container we call community, where it's easier to do that thing, right? Because out there, when I'm interacting with all those people, or people in my family, or people in the other parts of the world, that it requires practice. It requires practice, right? And when we're in a space where we all feel a little bit safer, where we feel seen, where we feel open, it's easier to practice that experience of being with people who are different than us, right? And that's what opens us to perhaps perceive new things, to think about things we didn't think about before, to open our minds to new concepts, new awarenesses, new ways of doing and being. Because I believe that the call for us all is to be part of this process of conscious evolution. And that means that we have to put ourselves out there. It means that we have to be willing to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable. We have to be willing to speak our truth and also listen to the truth of the other, right? We've been talking many times, we've been echoing this idea that the great healing work in front of us, as my teacher Jean Houston would put it, is the greatest task in front of us is to heal the great divide of otherness. And that we have to be the bridge builders. Right? Reverend Tamras told us over and over and over again, it's those difficult conversations with the people that we don't agree with that are going to open us up to the potential healing that is being called for by all of this chaos that appears to be out in front of us. Really, there's an invitation here for all of us to step up, to open up, and to be willing to kind of let our own borders down a little bit and let each other in. But that also requires knowing who we are. First, really being deeply grounded in the deeper truths of who we are, that each one of us does have a light within us, that there is a universal consciousness that lives within us, that there is a something more than we are that is breathing our bodies and beating our hearts, and it is that one who's looking through my eyes, who's speaking these words, who's hearing these words, who's seeing me right now, that indeed there is only one of us here. And that it's our spiritual practice, it's the songs we sing, it's the meditation, it's the prayer, it's those practices that are going to help us remember that truth about ourselves so that we have a whole depth of identity in God, in the universe, as life itself. Yes. And I was listening to a political commentator talking last week on something I was watching, and this concept was really fascinating to me, and I'm going to try to read and share this with you now, which is they were saying that when an individual doesn't have a good sense of their own borders, that they place those borders on their nation or on their community or their state or their city. If you don't have a good sense of your own body, you're going to look to the next body that you can see. Which then means that if someone crosses that border, they're invading your body. And they were trying to describe why there's so much pain and fear in our nation about the other, whomever that might be, entering into our communities. And it was this idea that there are so many people in the world that do not have a solid identity of who they are. That so many people are truly lost in the knowing, not knowing that there's something greater living inside of them. That there's a deeper presence breathing our bodies, that there's a greater consciousness looking through our eyes. And when we don't have a sense of that, we're going to look to define our safety outside of ourselves. When what if we could recognize that not only is each one of us whole and complete in that truth of who we are, but when we know that for ourselves, we can start to look for that in each other. When we truly have a sense of identity as the universe, as God, as love, as light, then in the realization of that, we can start looking for it in the eyes of the people that we meet. And if there is no other, then there's no borders to protect. If there's only one of us here, then it's just us. It's we, the one I, right? And I love the fact that in English we have this word I that we all use, and there's only one. That when I say I and you say I, we're referring to the same thing. There's only one of us here. And that truth is the thing that we have got to wrap our minds around in some way. Because the more we otherize the other, the more we create more otherness. Right? And even those who are wrong, even those who are doing all the bad things in the world, guess what? They're part of the one. And as soon as I step into a place where I see separation, what am I creating more of? Right. You know, I had this thought of, looking to some of the really big, painful things that are happening in the world that are hard to watch. And having this thought the other day of, if I hate the hater, I've allowed hate into my heart. And that poison is only going to eat at me. And that the greatest, most radical, revolutionary thing that you can do is love your enemy. Be good to those who hurt you. Pray for those who would do harm to you. Somebody said that a couple thousand years ago on top of a mountain. The message is still true. That really the work is for us. To recognize that the differences is what make us beautiful. That the diversity is what makes us powerful. And that it's in the cultivation of the awareness that there's something more here that will allow us all to rise above the differences and find the beauty in our world, in our community, in our nation, in our city, in this place. And realize that each one of us is coming with our own unique flavor, with our own unique background. And there may be things on the potluck table that you just can't stomach, but we have to sit with that. And sometimes we have to allow people into our hearts, allow people into our community who we might feel a little bit of a rub with. But that friction place is what's going to create more opening if we allow it to be. It's when we lean into each other that we grow. It's when we bump up against each other that we have the opportunities to practice all this stuff that we say we believe. It's really easy to be in love and in harmony and in mutual seeing when it's easy. And then when it's hard, that's when the practice pays off, right? So we have to get ahead of ourselves and do the spiritual practice. Really figure out what is the way that I personally connect with Spirit. What does my own unique spiritual path look like? And then commit to it wholly and completely every single day. You know, our philosophy, this science of mind, is really about making a consistent, conscious effort to be better, to be more aware, to be closer to the truth. But each one of us has to access it in our own way. No one here can tell you how you connect with your source. You have to figure that out for yourself. But feel it. And then bring your uniqueness to the community so that we can engage in conversations, so that we can sit down with each other, so that we can ask those interesting and potentially uncomfortable questions and see what is here for us to learn. Because when we each bring our individual knowledge, wisdom, history, background, experience, and we come into the overlap of that, that's where the greatest truth emerges. That's how Ernest Holmes came up with the science of mind. He looked to the Bible and to the Bhagavad Gita and to Emerson and to philosophy and to all of these different teachings. And in looking at that potluck of beliefs, right, he found, look, there's common truths among all of it. There are universal truths that are here for us if we're willing to look for them. So part of being in community is bringing those together and then looking for those common truths, those commonalities, those common beliefs, those places of common passion, to claim who we are and what we stand for. And so that's the invitation as we move through, especially as we move into the holidays in the next couple of weeks. We are so blessed to live in one of the most diverse places on the planet, where all of the beliefs and traditions surround us are intermixed and intermingled into our world, right? And so as we celebrate all of the different holidays and celebrations of light that are coming up in the next number of weeks, use them as an opportunity to maybe learn a little bit about a tradition that you're not familiar with. What little grain of truth might be there for you? Right? So next week, next Sunday is going to be the first night of Hanukkah. And just so you know, Rabbi Eli from our friends at Hadesh Shemenu, Rabbi Eli is going to come next week and talk to us a little bit about Hanukkah and how we can take the meaning of that for ourselves into our season of light as we go into celebrating winter solstice the following Wednesday. So take a deep breath in and let it go. If it's comfortable, close your eyes. And as we just take this moment to just bring our minds first to stillness. And it is in this place of stillness as I connect with my own breath that I remember that I am being breathed by something greater than myself. That it is life that beats my heart. That it is the universe living in me, evolution unfolding through me. And I recognize that that which is here is the one seamless presence that is living and breathing in everyone and everything, everywhen and everywhere. That indeed every single circumstance, every situation, every life, everyone, all that is unfolding on planet Earth here and now is happening within this thing that I call God. One energy, one love, one life, one power, one presence, one consciousness in, through, and as everyone and everything. And yet that one emerges through the fractals of existence that we are. And it emerges through each one of us as our uniqueness, as our passion, as our gifts, as the possibilities that only we can see. And so let us recognize that each one of us represents a pattern through which the light of God reveals itself in the world. And when we come together in community, when we bring our uniqueness, when we bring our history, when we bring our pain, when we bring our questions together, greater patterns of possibility emerge. And it is in those greater patterns of possibility that a world that works for everyone, that the physical and mental healing that all of us are calling upon can be granted. Let each of us be the place where the something more continues to evolve into the world. Let each one of us be a place where new awarenesses are welcomed, where new ideas are sought after, where new ways of doing and being evolve through us naturally and with joy and ease and grace. I am so profoundly grateful for this spiritual community of individuals from backgrounds and spiritual traditions from all over. And yet we come into this place recognizing that there is a commonality, that there is a universal presence, that no matter what we call it, no matter how we contact it, that it is the one life that is living and breathing in each one of us. And so I just give thanks for this space, for this place, for these people, and for this opportunity to be in this collective awareness together. And so let us just surrender to this idea that there is something more here, greater than we can see. Ernest Holmes says there's a power for good in this universe. It is greater than we are. And I say it is who we are, moving through us in everything we do. Let us be on purpose. Live with purpose. Every day, every breath, every choice. And so for all of this and so much more, I just give it my yes. And let us say together, and so it is.